Well, hello and welcome back. It's good to see you all. This is Joe Brownlee with Palm Beach State, and you are watching the Intermediate Algebra Final Exam Review Series, and this is question number 14. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Alright, so just like number 13, our directions are to perform the indicated operation and express in lowest terms. Alright, so number 14, cruising along. And again, I have two fractions, but instead of multiplying like we did in number 13, I'm asked to subtract these two. And the original fractions are going to be x over x squared minus 16 minus 4 over x squared plus 5x plus 4. All right, let's go ahead and set this aside. Well, the first thing that I would recognize is that this is an expression, not an equation. And you may recall that the difference is an expression has no equal sign, whereas an equation does. 1 plus 2 equals 3, for example, is an equation. And the reason it's important to recognize the difference is because we are going to solve this expression, set it up differently than we will set up fractions or ratios when it comes to an equation. With an expression with no equal sign, we're going to stack these. And you may remember that it looks like this. And we stack them in order to help us better determine what the common denominator is going to be. Because remember, when we are adding and subtracting fractions, we need like denominators. So the first step I'm going to do is factor all of my denominators. And in our first fraction, we have x squared minus 16. And you may notice that that is the difference of perfect squares. And so that factors into x minus 4, x plus 4. And the denominator for my second fraction is a trinomial. And so we're looking for factors of 4 that add to give me a positive 5. Well, that's going to be x plus 4, x plus 1. Because 4 plus 1 gives me 5. And 4 times 1 gives me 4. Alright, so now that I've factored the denominators from both of my fractions, I can go ahead and start to determine what the common denominator is going to be. And the common denominator has to have the factors from both denominators. And you'll see what that means when we set it up. So let's take a look. Well, here in the first fraction, I have an x minus 4, so I know my common denominator has to include that. So I have an x minus 4 on top, but I don't have an x minus 4 here in the bottom. So let's go ahead and make note of that. I have an x plus 4 in my top, and I have an x plus 4 in the bottom, so that's good. And, well, I say I have an x plus 1 here in the bottom denominator, so I know that has to be included. But I don't see an x plus 1 as part of my factors from the denominator in my first fraction, so let's make a note of that. So what we have to ask ourselves is, well, since we were missing an x plus 1 from the factors up top, then I have to multiply the denominator from my first fraction by an x plus 1 because it was missing. Here on the bottom fraction, I had an x plus 4 and an x plus 1. I didn't have an x minus 4, and so I need to multiply the denominator of the second equation by an x minus 4. So what we're doing is we're multiplying the denominators by whatever factor was missing. And you may recall that whatever we do to the bottom, we also have to do to the top. And so if I was missing an x plus 1 in the denominator here, then I have to multiply by an x plus 1 on top. And if I was missing an x minus 4 as a factor in the second fraction here, and I multiplied the denominator by x minus 4, well then I also have to multiply the numerator by an x minus 4. Alright, well let's go ahead and do some multiplication here. So when I distribute this x to the x plus 1 factor, I get x times x. Well, that just gives me x squared. And x times positive 1, well, that's just a positive x. And then when I distribute this negative 4 to the factor x minus 4, I get negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And negative 4 times negative 4, well, that's a positive 16. All right, so then what I do is I just move my numerators over. And now that I have a common denominator, meaning the factors for my denominator are all the same, now I can go ahead and combine my numerators. So for my numerators, what do I have? We're going to go ahead and just write this out as a long expression. So let's go ahead and do x squared plus x minus 4x plus 16 over our common denominator, which is x minus 4, x plus 4, x plus 1. And then I have to ask myself, well, can I combine anything in my numerator here? And the answer is yes, I can. Do I have any other x squareds? No, so that's going to come over. Well, I say I have a positive x and a negative 4x. So that combines to give me a negative 3x plus 16. That is going to be all over my 3 common factors. Now at this stage, what you could do is try to factor your numerator to see if any of the factors would cancel out. But in this case, the numerator can't be factored using scissors, and so we're not going to come up with any factors that can cancel. And so this here is my final answer. So when we are subtracting and working with this expression, again, we want to stack them so that we can more easily find a common denominator. And in order to do that, we're going to factor the denominators. And whatever factors I'm missing, I have to multiply by in order to get a common denominator. And whatever I multiply one denominator by, I have to multiply the numerator by as well. Once my common denominator has been set, then I can work and combine and simplify just my numerator. And when I combine and simplify my numerator, I get to a final answer. And our final answer here is x squared minus 3x plus 16 over x minus 4, x plus 4, and x plus 1. All right, well, that was number 14. We are moving right along to question number 15. Hope you enjoyed. Again, this is Joe Brownlee with Palm Beach State, and thanks for watching.